When I walked away, my brother became CEO and we lost $600K. Shocking family secret revealed. Jake felt a chill creep up his spine as he remembered that frantic phone call. His brother Sam had always been the golden child, the one everyone praised. But as the news of his stunning promotion hit, so did the realization that their family was hiding a secret darker than he could have imagined. The boardroom had erupted in applause, but the air was thick with tension, like a storm ready to break. Sam's ascension to CEO wasn't just a personal triumph. It felt like a betrayal to Jake. He could almost hear the whispers echoing in his ears. Who was really behind this? Each detail fell into place like a sinister puzzle piece. The missing dollars, 600,000, vanished just like that. It was an amount Jake could never fathom losing. And there it was on the surface, a success story, but underneath, the rotting stench of betrayal wafted through their family's name. What they didn't reveal at the press conference haunted Jake. A rushed transaction tied to shady investors? A corporate cover-up that set the family at odds? Or was it something worse? The answers felt like jagged shards of glass, cutting deep as he picked them up. He had turned away from the family gathering last week, his heart racing like he was about to confront a lion. At that moment he didn't just walk away. He fled from the lies that were suffocating him. How could Sam claim victory while shadows of deceit loomed over their heads? The truth clenched at Jake's chest, tightening like a vice. It ached to breathe, to question what loyalty meant now. Their parents had turned blind eyes and deaf ears to the unfolding drama. What had they known? Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. In that moment of realization, anger burned through him. He could hear his parents' muffled voices, discussing the glory of family bonds, while Jake felt more isolated than ever. He wanted to scream, to demand an explanation. But as he stood in the corridor, his heart racing and fists trembling, he knew he couldn't go back. He'd been right to leave, right to trust his instincts. Something wasn't right and he needed to probe deeper. With salty tears stinging his eyes, he whispered a promise to himself. He would uncover the truth behind this shocking ruse and expose the family's deep-seated secrets. The question loomed larger with every heartbeat: would he have the courage to confront the brother who had seemingly turned against him? Jake couldn't shake the feeling of dread as he paced his dimly lit apartment. The walls closed in on him, shadows dancing mockingly in the corners, whispering questions he couldn't answer. He couldn't just sit back and accept what was happening. Sam's success felt like a parasite feeding off their family's rotten roots, and the more he considered it, the more he realized he couldn't turn a blind eye. Taking a deep breath, he grabbed his phone and dialed Lisa, his closest friend and confidant. "I need your help," Jake said, his voice barely above a whisper. "It's about Sam. There's something wrong. And I need to find out what. What's going on?" "You sound off," she replied, concern lacing her tone. Importing all his fears into the conversation, he recounted Sam's rise and the unexplained loss of money. He could hear Lisa's intake of breath on the other end. "That's serious, Jake. Have you talked to him about it?" "Talk? You think he'd be honest? It would be like asking a wolf to guard the sheep," Jake snapped, frustration boiling over. He was beyond reason, feeling like the family secret was suffocating him, and the walls of loyalty were crumbling. Okay. Let's dig deeper. "I'll be there soon," Lisa finally said, trying to calm him down. Her voice was a slight anchor amidst the storm in his mind. As the minutes dragged, Jake's mind raced with ideas. Sam must have made some enemies along the way. Was he in over his head? He couldn't help but imagine Sam cornered, trapped in a mess of his own making, concealing something far more sinister. When Lisa arrived, she brought a sense of urgency with her, energizing Jake. "Let's start with the company records," she suggested, her eyes glinting with determination. "If there was a foul play involving money, there must be a paper trail. We can blend in as employees and ask some questions without raising suspicion." As they dug into the latest reports, Jake's heart sank. The numbers didn't add up. Massive transactions, mysterious accounts scattered throughout the spreadsheets like breadcrumbs leading to a grave. His hands trembled as he realized they weren't just looking at lost funds, they were teetering on the edge of a scandal. Then, a sudden ping interrupted his focus. A notification on his phone. It was a message from an unknown number. If you dig too deep, you might not like what you find. Fear washed over him, but Jake's resolve hardened. Who could this be? A threat? An ally? His stomach twisted, but he pushed the uneasiness aside. This felt dangerous, more dangerous than he ever anticipated. He glanced at Lisa, who was deep in thought. We need to talk to the board members. They must know something, he exclaimed, his voice tinged with urgency. But before they could finalize their plan, another message buzzed in. You can't trust anyone, especially not Sam. Jake's pulse raced. Did Sam have a hand in this? Was it possible that the very brother he grew up idolizing was entwined in this treachery? Questions swarmed like bees, stinging his thoughts. I can't let this go, he said, determination piercing through the fear. The truth beckoned, sinister and twisted. What would he uncover if he dared to tread deeper into this web? And the real quandary loomed ahead. Would he come out unscathed? Or would he lose everything, including his brother? Jake stood, the weight of uncertainty anchoring him. The dark corners of his apartment seemed to pulse with a life of their own, shadows shifting as if waiting for him to make a move. We can't just sit here, he muttered to himself, his voice a mere echo in the stillness. Lisa leaned over their scattered papers. Jake, this could change everything. Are you sure you want to go this far? Her eyes darted to the door as if expecting Sam to walk through at any moment, naive of the turmoil brewing. What choice do I have? Jake's weak attempt at a smile faltered as anxiety clawed at his chest. Someone was out there watching, waiting. His phone buzzed again, another message. The screen lit up and his heart raced. You want to be safe until you stop looking, it read. I don't get it, Lisa said, a frown creasing her brow. Who would want to threaten us like this? Do you think it's really connected to Sam? Jake ran a hand through his hair, frustration mingling with fear. It has to be. He has been acting, I don't know, off, like a man juggling fire, pretending everything's fine while the flames lit closer to his skin. Then we need to be smarter than him, at least, she urged. Let us confront the board anonymously. We could go in under the pretense of gathering information for a personal project. Good idea, Jake agreed, adrenaline sharp in his veins. They worked late into the night, formulating a plan while dark thoughts spiraled in Jake's mind. Each click of the keyboard echoed like a ticking clock, counting down to something big, something life-changing. When the sun crept through the blinds, they set their plan into motion. Dressed in unassuming clothes, they blended in as they approached the high-rise office where Sam's company thrived. Jake's heart raced with every step, the polished glass and steel facade looming over them. Upon entering, the air felt charged, like a storm about to break. They approached the receptionist, and Jake crafted a lie with practiced ease. We're here to discuss some potential investment opportunities. Do you have a moment? The receptionist barely looked up, her disinterest palpable. You'll need to speak with someone in finance. Please wait. As they waited, Jake's eyes scanned the room. Every man and woman moved like clockwork, smiles plastered on their faces, eyes betraying nothing. Minutes felt like hours until a man from finance finally stepped out. You two looking for something? He asked, a hint of skepticism in his tone. Jake nodded, steeling himself. We want to understand the recent financial shifts. Swell concerning. He could tell immediately that he had caught the man off guard. The keen look of surprise flickered before being sealed away beneath layers of corporate polish. Isn't it better to discuss this in private? The man replied, eyeing them warily. Yes, it would, Lisa chimed in, the urgency in her voice undeniable. There may be some serious implications coming from the top. Jake noticed the tension in the air. The man hesitated, glancing around as if fearing spies were listening. Follow me, he finally said, leading them to a conference room, its door closing softly behind them. Once inside, every muscle in Jake's body tightened. This was the moment he had been waiting for. Yet doubt began to cloud his mind. They could be walking into a trap, two eager hands on the deck of a sinking ship. As the man took a seat, Jake's heart raced. We need to know what's really going on. What does Sam have to do with all of this? Before the man could reply, the room was plunged into darkness, the door swinging open. A sharp voice called out, "Get away from him!" Panic shot through Jake's veins. This wasn't just an interview anymore. It was a warning. As the lights flickered back on, he saw familiar faces, Sam's allies glaring at them. Who had set this ambush? Jake? Lisa? I think you've overstayed your welcome. Sam's voice echoed ominously from the shadows, and Jake felt the ground shift beneath him. What had Sam dragged him into? The web was tightening, and Jake feared he was no longer in control. But one question loomed, larger than the rest. Whose side was Sam really on? A chill raced through Jake as Sam stepped fully into the light. A smirk plastered on his face, but that smile didn't reach his eyes. There was something predatory about his stance. His hands casually tucked into his pockets like he had nothing to fear. "Sam," Jake managed, his voice strained. "What's going on? What are you doing here?" Across from them, the finance guy shifted uncomfortably. "I think it's time you two leave." Lisa's eyes darted between Jake and the door. She could feel the tension thickening the air, tightening around them. "We're not leaving until we get some answers," she declared, her voice steady but forced. "Answers?" Sam raised an eyebrow, taking a step closer. "What makes you think you're entitled to any of those? You two have been digging where you shouldn't." Jake's stomach twisted. The implication behind those words sank in like lead. This is about the missing money, isn't it? The shady dealings? The finance man moved toward the door, hesitant now. "I really think you should both go." "Shut up," Sam barked, silencing him with a glare that could cut glass. Turning back to Jake and Lisa, he continued, "You wanted to know what I'm involved in, huh? Fine. But don't say I didn't warn you." He flicked off a wall-mounted light switch, plunging the room into darkness again. The sound of heavy footsteps echoed, the air electric with fear and confusion. Jake's heart pounded against his ribs as he instinctively reached for Lisa's hand. "We need to go now," he urged, but before they could move, the light flickered back on, revealing two more figures standing guard by the entrance. Lisa's breath hitched in her throat. "Sam, this ain't a joke." "It's never been a joke," Sam replied coldly. "You have no idea what's really at stake here. Do you care to enlighten us?" Jake shot back, each word laced with defiance. "Or are you just going to stand there and watch us get dragged under?" The unyielding situation had reached a boiling point. The finance guy now looked thoroughly terrified, eyes flitting from Jake to Sam, then to the door. There's a lot going on behind the scenes. You don't want any part of this. Just walk away." "No," Lisa interjected. "We won." Jake could see the fear in Lisa's eyes mirroring his own. She looked at him, decision made, and he felt a surge of adrenaline. "We can't back down. We need the truth." Sam laughed, but it was devoid of humor. "You're blind, Jake. The truth? You think that will set you free? It'll be the weight that drags you down." The two guards stepped further into the room, arms crossed, expressions grim. Jake's chest tightened, realization dawning. They were trapped. "Now this is funny," Sam said, moving closer, consuming the space between them like a predator stalking its prey. "You thought you could play detective? You're nothing but pawns in a game you don't understand. Then tell us what we're missing," Jake shouted, stepping forward. Just as he did, a loud crash echoed from nearby, the kind that rattled the very foundation of the high-rise. Sam's smirk faltered momentarily. "What was that?" Jake didn't hesitate. "We need out of here. Now." He took hold of Lisa's hand, ready to bolt for the door as the commotion intensified. With one last glance back at Sam, whose expression had shifted from smug confidence to something resembling panic, Jake sprinted toward the door. But in that instant, just as they were about to break free, Sam said something that sent a shiver down Jake's spine. "Don't think this is over. The real game is just beginning." What did he mean? Jake's mind raced as he pushed through the doorway, the urgency of escape pounding at his heart. Outside, chaos erupted, screams, confusion, and the sound of sirens. The beautiful facade of the corporate building was fracturing before his eyes. In that moment, Jake knew they had entered a world darker than they ever imagined. And as they dove into the fray, one question loomed ominously above them. What had they really stumbled into? Jake stumbled into the chaotic swirl of bodies outside the building, the weight of panic pressing down on him like a thick fog. Lisa pulled him along, and they ducked behind a cluster of parked cars, their hearts racing. Sirens wailed in the distance, mingling with the thrumming adrenaline coursing through their veins. What the hell just happened? Lisa gasped, her breath hitching. Her eyes darted from shadow to shadow, apprehensive about what might be lurking in the dark corners of the street. Sam, he was completely off the rails. It doesn't matter, Jake said, trying to steady his voice, but it came out strained. We have to figure out what he meant about the game. Lisa squeezed his hand tighter, grounding herself as she looked up at him. We need a plan. We can't just run without knowing who's behind this. That crash, what if it was a warning? In the distance, a group of people were shouting, some running towards them. Jake squinted, trying to recognize any familiar faces, but the shadows played tricks on him. The scene felt surreal, almost like they had fallen into a nightmare where the rules had changed, and no one was safe. We can't stay here, Jake said. They had to find answers and they needed to get to safety first. Where do we go? Let us head to that cafe down the street, Lisa suggested, her voice gaining a bit of strength. We can regroup and figure out our next move. They sprinted along the sidewalk, weaving through the clusters of onlookers. Jake's mind raced. Sam's words echoed in his head, taunting him. The real game was just beginning. What sort of game was he talking about? And who was going to lose? Reaching the cafe, they ducked inside, the warm air hitting them like a blanket. They paused for a moment, catching their breath and scanning the room. A few patrons were glued to their phones, oblivious to the swirling chaos outside. A barista looked up wide-eyed as Jake and Lisa burst in, wild and disheveled. Hey, are you guys okay? She asked, concern etching her features. Yeah, Jake said, quickly looking back towards the front door. Just we need to call someone. Here, use our phone, the barista offered, pointing behind the counter. Jake nodded gratefully and moved toward it, leaving Lisa at the door to keep watch. He dialed his brother's number, but all he got was voicemail. Frustration boiled inside him. What else could he do? Just then, he noticed Lisa's expression shift, her eyes wide in fear. He turned to see what had caught her attention, and his blood ran cold. Two figures emerged from the street, expertly cutting through the crowd as if they had a specific target in mind. Jake's heart raced. He recognized that gait. Chip, he whispered, the name falling from his lips like a broken promise. Who is it? Lisa pressed, tightening her grip on the counter. There, he started, but before he could finish, Chip locked eyes with him, a malevolent grin spreading across his face. Jake, there you are. You shouldn't run off like that. We have business to discuss. Panic surged as Jake looked back toward the door. Their only escape route was closing fast. What did Chip want? What business could he possibly mean? Every instinct screamed for them to run again. But there was nowhere to go as Chip took a step closer. Something inside Jake snapped. You're not taking us anywhere. He shouted defiantly, facing the danger head-on. Lisa's eyes flicked around the cafe, searching for any potential escape. Jake, but it was too late. Sam's voice echoed in Jake's mind. The game was far from over. Just then the front door swung wide, admitting a gust of night air and with it, a new wave of chaos. Behind it, shadows moved like predators, and Jake knew that their ordeal had only just begun. What waited for them wasn't just danger but the truth hidden in the dark. And they were too invested now to back away. Little did they know the answers would shatter everything they thought they knew. The cafe, once a sanctuary, crackled with tension. Lisa instinctively moved closer to Jake, her pulse quickening as she caught the hunger in Chip's eyes. The door swung shut behind the figures now edging toward them, creating a small bubble where their voices could rise above the chaos outside. Jake, do something. Lisa whispered, practically shaking him. I'm trying. He spat back, panic clawing at his throat. There was urgency in Chip's grin, a twisted satisfaction he couldn't ignore. They had seen that very smile before, back when everything had been normal and carefree. But this was different. This was danger. Chip's companion stepped aside, revealing a tall shadow with a hood pulled over his head. He didn't speak, but the anticipation hung in the air. The barista, aware of the escalating threat, had stooped behind the counter, her face paled with fear. Come on, boys. No need to make this harder than it has to be, Chip teased, stepping forward, the confidence radiating from him seeming all too familiar. You just need to accept the invite to play the game. The game? Jake said, swallowing hard. What are you talking about? Oh, haven't you heard? Chip said, his smirk widening. Everyone around here is in on it. The mess earlier? A little demonstration. And you two? Consider yourselves the new players. Before Jake could wrap his mind around Chip's words, the hooded figure moved forward, breaking the bubble of tension. A knife glinted under the cafe's flickering lights. Lisa gasped softly, inching even closer to Jake. This isn't happening, she whispered, her breath quick and uneven. Jake tried to sound brave, but fear coiled tight around his heart. You want us to play? He said, using bravado he didn't feel. What are the rules? Chip stepped even closer, the darkness of his intentions clear. The rules are simple. You can either trust me and I'll show you the way, or you can fight and we all know how that ends. The words echoed hauntingly in Jake's mind. Fight? Trust this monster? He had meant it when he said he wouldn't back down. But what if backing down was the only way to escape this nightmare? Just then outside, a blast of sirens crescendoed, piercing the night. It was close, and a flicker of hope ignited in Jake. The police were coming. He turned to Lisa, his voice barely above a whisper. We need to get out the back. Now. Are you crazy? They'll catch us. Chip and his friend are the real danger. Fear and determination flared in his chest. He had to convince her. Lisa shot a worried glance at the two figures inching toward them. They let us with every ounce of will. Jake grabbed her hand and turned toward the rear of the cafe. This way. The back door creaked open, and at first it seemed they'd caught a break. Empty alleyways pushed the darkened chaos aside. A breath of safety, but beyond one alley was a looming shadow. A larger figure leaning against the wall, waiting. Jake's heart pounded louder than ever as they rushed to the nearest corner, only to find their escape blocked. The alley felt claustrophobic. Lisa's hand trembled in his, but the air crackled with electricity. Where now? She hissed, adrenaline coursing through her veins. He looked down the alley, knowing they were still being hunted. We have to outsmart them, it's the only way. Just then a shout rang out from the cafe. Chip's laughter sliced through the tension, echoing angrily in the night. Run, run. But you'll never escape the game, Jake. Not now, not ever. The walls seemed to close in around them, and Jake's mind raced. The night was no longer their enemy, it was the players who had turned it into a battleground. What awaited them around the corner? Jake couldn't shake the feeling their greatest challenge was yet to come. As he glanced back to where Chip stood, shadows framing him like a king, a new question buried in his gut. Could they survive this game, or were they already too deep to turn back? With their heartbeats pounding like war drums, Jake and Lisa stood pinned against the damp, graffiti-lined alley wall. The glint of the knife from the cafe still haunted Jake's mind, but he forced himself to focus. He needed a plan, and time was slipping away faster than he realized. Think, he murmured, scanning their surroundings. Shadows danced around them, each flicker spiking his anxiety. The distant sound of sirens grew closer, but would it be too late? He could continue down the alley, risking the unknown, or turn around and confront their pursuers. Neither option filled him with confidence. We need to move, Lisa urged, her voice a thin whisper that cracked with fear. She pulled on his arm, but he hesitated, weighing their choices. Then from behind the dumpster directly ahead, a soft scuffle followed by ominous silence. Jake felt a shiver travel down his spine. What was that? A flash of movement caught his eye, and before he could react, a small figure emerged, a scrappy teenage boy. His clothes tattered, eyes wide with panic. He glanced at Jake and Lisa, then toward the entrance to the alley, where Chip's laughter still echoed ominously. Run! The boy yelped, his voice cracking. You gotta get out of here. The game's real, they'll hunt you down. Who are you? Jake asked, his heart racing from the unexpected presence. No time for that. He pointed wildly toward the end of the alley. Trust me. They're coming, and they won't stop. A rush of desperation propelled Jake forward. He had no time to think, no room for doubt. He grabbed Lisa's hand again, pulling her toward their unknown savior. Let us go. They dashed past the boy, the alley sharp and narrow, its walls suffocating. As they turned a corner, harsh fluorescent lights illuminated their path. It led to a back street bustling with life, unaware of the danger lurking just behind them. What's the plan? Lisa demanded, chest heaving with every breath. The boy glanced back. Just keep moving. Don't stop for anything. His eyes darted as if he could already feel the watchful gaze of their pursuers. But Jake didn't look back. He couldn't afford to. Speeding across the street, Jake's lungs burned, the cool night air stinging his throat. He had no destination, only the primal urge to put as much distance as possible between them and their hunters. They slipped into a darkened alley that felt like a safe haven, but it was too quiet. Too still. Jake, what if sure? He whispered fiercely, pressing a finger to his lips. He leaned against the cold brick wall, listening intently as the faint sounds of chaos faded into the distance. Had they escaped? The thought barely settled before a sudden rustle echoed from behind a nearby dumpster, a clear indication they were not alone. Before he could assess the situation, the shadow of the hooded figure materialized, stepping into the alley, knife glittering ominously once more. Jake's heart raced as he realized they hadn't outrun the threat. They merely paused in another part of the trap. You really thought you could hide? Chip's voice slithered from the darkness, a predator savoring the moment. The game has only just begun. Jake and Lisa stood frozen, cornered with nowhere to go. Desperation clawed at Jake's mind, the decision faltering between surrender and fight as he realized they were playing for their lives. Suddenly, Lisa let go of his hand, moving toward the back of the alley. I won't go down without a fight, she declared, a fire igniting in her eyes. Jake tore his gaze from Chip and the looming danger and turned to Lisa. Wait. We have to stick together. No. I'm done being scared, she shouted back, gathering her courage. And at that moment, in the tension crackling like static between them, Jake realized that their options had narrowed into a single choice: stand and face their enemies together, or let the shadows swallow them whole. As he took a step forward, dread pooled in his stomach. They had no idea what would happen next, but they were about to find out just how far Chip's game would go and what it would take to survive. Would they emerge unscathed, or would darkness claim them both? The ground shifted beneath his feet as the shadows closed in, leaving Jake with one haunting thought. What lengths would they go to survive? In a heartbeat, everything changed. What are you doing? Jake shouted, panic threading through his voice as he watched Lisa inch backward, defiance painted across her determined face. Chip's cold smile twisted as he stepped closer, the blade catching the light in a way that made Jake's stomach churn. Just stay behind me, Jake urged, feeling the urge to protect Lisa flood him like a raging current. But Lisa stood her ground, her breath quickening, eyes locked onto Chip with unyielding intensity. No, she whispered fiercely. I'm fighting. Before Jake could pull her back, Lisa lunged at Chip, her fists flailing wildly. In that split second, adrenaline surged through Jake's veins, igniting a fierce instinct to protect. But the world turned on its axis as Chip sidestepped her attack, the glint of the knife flashing dangerously close. Cute, Chip said, exhaling a laugh that echoed in the narrow alley. You think bravado will save you? Get off her. Jake surged forward, a mix of fear and rage propelling him as he instantly regretted the impulsive move. He thrust his body between Lisa and Chip, heart hammering wildly against his ribcage. With a swift motion, Chip raised his knife, cold steel glimmering menacingly in the muted light. You really don't want to be the hero, Jake. I promise it won't end well for you. Jake's words caught in his throat. The sight of the blade under the flickering light was enough to freeze him in time. Behind him he felt Lisa's panic, her trembling fingers brushing against his back. Jake, be quiet. Both of you. Chip interrupted, voice dripping with malicious glee. Let us see how long you last in my game. Just one mistake and it will all be over. Suddenly a loud crash reverberated from the end of the alley, echoing like thunder. Chip flinched, momentarily distracted. Jake seized the moment. Run! He shouted urgently, grabbing Lisa's hand and pulling her with him. They darted to the side, navigating the shadows of the alley like ghosts. Heart pounding, Jake could hear Chip roar in frustration behind them, the sound ricocheting off the brick walls, heightening the fear coursing through his veins. Where do we go? Lisa gasped, the desperation in her voice slicing through the chaos. Anywhere but here, Jake replied, scanning the streets ahead. They could hear the distant murmurs of the city, but the feeling of being so utterly lost mixed with their urgency to escape was suffocating. Over there. Lisa pointed to a faint light spilling out from a cracked door. Without hesitation they sprinted toward it, feet pounding against the pavement, the sirens ghosting in the background. When they reached the door, Jake shoved it open with urgency. It swung inward, revealing a dimly lit storage room filled with forgotten boxes and a lingering scent of must and mildew. They slipped inside, breathing heavily as the door clicked shut behind them. Did we lose him? Lisa panted, throwing an anxious glance toward the door, her eyes wide with fear. I don't know, Jake replied, heart still racing. He peered through a small window wedged between piles of discarded furniture. The alley seemed still, but the unsettling feeling that Chip was still hunting them hung like a dark cloud. With them trapped in the storage room, silence enveloped them. Lisa's voice was barely a whisper. What was that? What was going on back there? He could see the question swirling in her eyes, but all he could do was shake his head. The weight of uncertainty pressed down harder. They had entered a game one where the rules were sinister and deadly. Suddenly a low thud echoed outside, breaking their momentary reprieve. Jake's breath caught in his throat. Had Chip found them? I need to get a way out of here. Jake's voice came out tight, but the realization clawed at his mind. There were no easy escapes. They were caught, and they had no idea what Chip's next move would be. Together, right? Lisa asked, determination clashing with her visible fear. Until the end, Jake replied, wondering if he truly believed it as the door rattled ominously, the sound echoing through the small space. With one final shattering thump, the door shook in its frame. They needed a plan, and fast. Would they make it out, or had their game just begun? The rattling door only intensified their fear, a relentless reminder of the predator lurking outside. Jake's palms were slick with sweat as he moved toward the window, heart hammering like a drum. The dim light barely illuminated the room, casting haunting shadows that danced around him. Jake, Lisa whispered, a tremor in her voice. What if he finds us? We can't just sit here. He turned to face her, forcing a nod despite the dread pooling in his stomach. They had to think. Maybe there's another way out. Sensing her fear, he added, we're in this together. We'll find a way. Jake began rifling through the stacks of boxes. Dust floated like tiny ghosts in patches of light. He lifted one box, revealing nothing but old newspapers and faded photos. Their contents did little to distract him. He shoved it aside, searching for something, anything that could aid their escape. You're overreacting, Jake, Lisa said, though her voice trembled. Just stay calm. Calm? He shot back, voice taut. There's a psychopath out there with a knife. Calm isn't in my vocabulary right now. Before she could respond, another thud shook the door, more forceful this time, sending vibrations through the walls. Jake shot her a glance, adrenaline slicing through him. They both froze, holding their breath. Chip was relentless, and they knew it. Footsteps echoed outside, muffled yet unmistakably close. Fear surged through Jake, hotter than before. He's coming, he whispered, eyes wide. Thinking quickly, Jake dropped to his hands and knees, searching the floor beneath the old crates. Maybe I can crawl to another part of this place. There has to be a way around. Lisa knelt beside him, biting her lip. But what if you get caught? I won tea, he insisted, desperate conviction fueling his voice. He glanced at her, and for an instant, their eyes locked in unspoken agreement. They were in this together no matter what. As he began to crawl, the door creaked again. The sound was loud now, like a grim symphony of panic. He turned back. Lisa, I need you to find something to block the door, he urged. Make it look like we're still in here. Her eyes widened in surprise, and he could see her battling within, risking herself for their chance or staying back where it was safe. But Jake, do it. He nearly shouted, urgency propelling the command. Without another word, Lisa darted to a stack of old crates, frantically piling them against the door. The thuds grew louder, more insistent, as Chip aimed to break through. Jake moved swiftly, gaining ground beneath the stacks piled high. He could feel the pulse of impending doom urging him to go faster, as the door echoed with Chip's relentless assaults. Just as Lisa finished bracing the door, a shadow darkened the light coming from the doorway. It was only a moment's glance, but Jake saw Chip's silhouette lurking just outside. Heart racing, he crawled into a narrow opening, the kind that led to the unknown depths of the dark storage room. Jake, Lisa's voice cracked with fear, desperation. Keep it together. He called back softly. I'll find a way. He inched through the cramped space, the darkness swallowing him whole. It felt like an eternity, every sound amplified his breath. The distant thud of the door. And then he heard it. A sound just beyond the wall, a scraping noise that sent chills down his spine. What was waiting for him on the other side? With a rush of resolve mixed with dread, he pressed forward, heart pounding. As he turned a corner, he spotted a beam of light illuminating a possible exit. Hope ignited, and he dared to dream until he heard Chip's voice, unmistakably close. You think you can hide? It was low, taunting. I'm going to find you. Panic gripped Jake as he scrambled toward the light, terrified of what would happen when Chip finally forced his way through. It was no longer a matter of escaping, it was about survival. He needed to be faster, smarter, but the question loomed large: could he get out before it was too late? And just then, as he reached the opening, he felt the darkness close in behind him with a sound that made his blood run cold. Jake felt the cool air rush past him just as the two shadows slunk closer. The flickering light illuminated the narrow passageway, a small beacon of hope in the overwhelming darkness. His heart raced, urging him to move faster. Every single second felt monumental. He pushed forward, every muscle taut and every instinct clamoring to survive. He slipped out into a wider corridor that smelled of damp wood and age. It wasn't much, just a forgotten corner of the city alive with the whispers of what once was, but it offered a chance. Just beyond, the echo of Chip's mocking laughter reverberated through the thin walls, a looming threat that sent shivers down Jake's spine. Keep moving, he whispered to himself, forcing his feet to carry him forward. With each step, the damning reminder of Chip's danger pushed him further into the unknown, the shadows breathing down his neck. Where am I? He muttered, glancing around at the stacks of forgotten relics lining the hall, old promotional signs, faded photographs, remnants of a forgotten world. Nothing tangible, but it felt haunting, trapped in time like him. Behind him, a loud crash erupted. The door he had narrowly escaped through splintered under Chip's relentless force. Jake's heart raced, a primal surge of energy pushing him deeper. He spotted a door at the end of the space, a flicker of light spilling out from underneath it. Please let this be it. With urgency, he sprinted toward the door, the sound of footsteps behind him crashing like a tidal wave through the quiet corridor. He slammed into it, throwing his weight against the worn wood, praying it would budge. Come on, he grunted, pushing harder. The door creaked open, revealing a stairwell that spiraled upward, the light beckoning him like a guardian from a nightmare. Without hesitation, he charged inside, the darkness of the stairwell enveloping him like a thick fog. He could hear Chip shouting in the distance, the competitive, taunting voice ringing out behind him. Suddenly, Lisa's face flashed before his eyes. The determination in her stare fueled him. Her courage echoed in the hallowed halls of his memory, pushing him to climb higher. He wouldn't let her down. He couldn't. As he reached the third floor, he burst through the door at the top of the stairs and nearly collided with a tight group of people, their faces painted with worry and fear. A small crowd erupted in surprised gasps. Jake? A voice he recognized. Lisa. Jake, she cried out, running toward him. Relief washed over them both as they collided in a fierce embrace. I thought I lost you, she exclaimed, her voice a mix of relief and raw concern. Chip is coming. We need to. But before he could finish, a figure appeared at the top of the stairs. Chip, his malicious smile carved into his face as he leaned against the frame of the doorway like a malevolent statue. Look who we have here, caught like little mice. His voice oozed with triumph. Panic tightened like a vice around Jake's chest. We can't let him trap us, he hissed to Lisa. Suddenly, an unexpected voice broke the tension. Shut it, Chip. A woman stepped forward from the crowd, eyeing him with fierce defiance. You think you can just walk in here and intimidate everyone? Not anymore. Jake watched in astonishment as the unease morphed into strength. It was Samantha, Sam's assistant and a fierce worker in her own right. She had been there through all the board meetings, navigating the politics of the company more adeptly than any of them realized. You're outnumbered now, she continued. And all this? She gestured to Jake and Lisa. This isn't a game anymore. You're messing with the wrong people. Chip smirked, staying unmoved. You all think you can take me down? This is only the beginning. But the crowd began to rally, murmurs growing louder. "Enough!" Samantha shouted, reflecting the determination buzzing in the room. Just then, the door crashed open, flooding the hall with light and the angry voices of police officers. Relief crashed into Jake like a wave as several officers stormed past Chip. "Hands up! Drop the weapon!" In the chaotic surge that followed, Chip's bravado cracked. Realizing the tide had turned, he turned to flee, but officers swiftly apprehended him, the moment dipping into a silent stillness as the threat was subdued. Relief washed over the group as they exchanged joyous glances. "Is everyone okay?" Lisa asked, scanning the crowd. Jake nodded, tears stinging his eyes as the weight of the ordeal began to lift. They had made it as the police led Chip away. Jake turned to see Samantha, her face a mask of triumph. "He won't get away with this," she promised. "We'll dig through everything, expose the truth. No matter the cost," Lisa affirmed, glancing at Jake with a determined smile. Jake felt a rush of hope surge through him, knowing they were ready to fight back not just for their families but for what was right. They stepped outside as dawn broke, the bright sun filtering through the broken night, overwhelming the shadows that had chased them. Jake squeezed Lisa's hand tightly. "So together until the end?" he asked softly, hoping for a new beginning. "Always," she replied, a radiant grin spreading across her face. There was a hope in the air now, mingling with the realness of the danger they had escaped. The game was over, and they were ready to reclaim their lives as the dawn of a new chapter unfolded before them. The nightmare was finally behind them. Now this is the moment to take action. You need to subscribe immediately to the channel, so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm, and let the world know you love this conclusion. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this thrilling ending. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Your support is vital, and only true fans understand its importance.